off button out.
There you go. Welcome to the fourth session today on our not our traditional face-to-face for a Wednesday Google Plus Hangout, because we're doing all sports marketing all the time, all day today in the business side of things. And I have with us Patrick Walker, president and co-founder of 3 Point Productions. Welcome, Patrick.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Happy to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Well, good to see you today. I want to thank you in particular. I know there was a sad death in the family of John Kudo, and he's unable to make it. And I'm impressed, but not necessarily surprised that he took the effort to find someone to fill in for him. He's, of course, in our thoughts and prayers, and we appreciate your willingness to step up today.
Yeah, John called me last week. Obviously, his dad had passed away, and while most people would be dumping everything and not thinking about work at all, he did shoot me a quick text, asked if there's a possibility to step in for him, and I'm happy to do so. We've been working together on columns and podcasts on GameOps.com for about 5 years now, and I hold a lot of respect for him, so I'm happy to step in and fill his shoes in this one.
Well, he's a good man, that's for sure. Hey, Patrick, you've got some background in event production. What is event production when we're talking about sports?
I think it's a little bit different. There's a couple different sides to it. Usually, when you're working with different teams around the nation, whether they're at the major league level, minor league level, collegiate level, it's going to be called a number of different things. You might hear it called game operations. You could hear it called game presentation. You could hear it called events and entertainment. You could hear it called the show. But it all boils down to what the fan experience is when they're going to an event, whether that be a basketball game, a football game, a NASCAR race, a golf event, tennis, you name the sport. There's still elements of live event presentation, both the logistics that it takes to put together everything back of house, kind of behind the scenes at Disneyland, if you will. And then there's the actual what you see from the moment you arrive at the arena. What does the plaza look like? Are there fan interactive stations out with a car sponsor? What happens when you get inside the door? Did you just get handed a T-shirt, maybe a rally towel? Are you going to the concession line and you happen to pass by the Pop-A-Shot interactive area on the arena? And then you step into the bowl. You got your hot dog in hand. You got your can of Coke and your popcorn, and you're ready for the show, and you sit down, and what does that? What are the pregame runouts like? When the players come out, what music is playing? Where are the spotlights going as the lights go down for introductions, and the mascot goes on a belay down from the arena or down from the rafters onto the court and picks up his big flag and waves it, and then the pyro goes off, and the players are introduced one by one to a signature song, and the lights come up and they get ready to tip that ball off, and the music's going crazy, and maybe it's AC/DC Back in Black, because you know the team is wearing their black uniforms that night. And then you get into the timeouts, and it's the dance team and the mascot skits. It's the sponsor videos and the top 5 plays of the night, and then you get into halftime, and you've got the break dancers that come out and put on a great halftime show, and then you get into the late stages of the game, and it's coming out of a timeout, and it's the player message that says, "Hey fans, get on your feet, let's make some noise," and the fans react, and that comes with a huge song like a "Welcome to the Jungle," and then the players hit the game-winning shot, and there's the big post-game interview and celebration. They throw T-shirts out. That's my version of event production on a game day. From a fan's eyes.
I'm ready to run through a wall after that. I mean, you got it going. When I think of all that stuff you were saying, now this goes back to when I first started in the area of sports marketing at the high school level. But I remember, and now, Ray Clay with the Chicago Bulls, with Alan Parsons Project, and the lights going, and
yes.
We had him come up and do a game for us at our high school, announce a game, and there's his business card, and it was, and now. I mean, 2 words that he became synonymous with. He changed. He was one of the guys for me, and there's a guy out in your neck of the woods called Steve the Dream Weaver out of Portland. But they changed it for me to understand that, yeah, you don't mess with a game. You're not getting in the X's and O's. You're not but you create the environment so that if your team is 0-41 at home, the fans still find a way to have fun.
Yeah. You bring up a good point there. A couple things. One is changing the environment for a positive, and really, when you hear the term home field advantage or home court advantage, that is oftentimes because the team is playing really well and the fans are supportive of it. But it is truly enhanced, and the Chicago Bulls were one of the first to really, do this right. It's creating that atmosphere so that the energy level goes from here to here at the right times and in the right sync of it can't be here throughout, but it's the teams and the directors that know how to do it here to here at the right moments, and bringing it here to here at the right moments that can have an impact. And you talk about being 0-41. I always like to live by a principle that ticket sales are going to sell the tickets, sponsorships are going to sell their sponsorships. We're not probably going to have a direct impact on that first impression, but I believe that the show at an arena or a stadium, the game presentation atmosphere, can be the number one source of renewal year to year. Because if a person walks into a game for the first time, win or lose, my goal, if I'm producing that game, is that they walk out of there not talking about, yay, we won, no, we lost. It's, I had a really good time. Yeah, I remember that 3-point game-winning buzzer. Man, do you remember the halftime act? Do you remember that guy that came out and won the car at the contest? That was Ford, right? Yeah, he won a Ford, automobile. That's so cool. So it's making the impact that not only do they walk away having a good time, win or lose, but what we've also done is we've incorporated the team sponsors and put them in a positive light so that someone doesn't say, oh gosh, all they did was sponsor reads the whole time and I felt I was going to a commercial. It's man, he won that Ford vehicle. That's so awesome. Because in the end, the sponsor's going to look at that and say, you know what? That's a huge impact on advertising for us in a very positive and interactive manner. So I think that game presentation has long been looked at, and game ops has long been looked at as a money spender in the realm of the our organizational structure. And I think over the past decade, those departments have made a strong effort to say, yes, we do need to spend a lot of money to create all these elements, but what we can also be is a revenue generator by creating an environment and elements and assets within a game that you can then go and sell to your sponsors successfully and sell to your group's tickets and get your season ticket holders renewed. And therefore, we become a revenue generator.
I've talked to people before whose job with the team is the game ops, game presentation, etc. But you're kind of a hired gun. I mean, you look at your bio and you're your own guy in many instances, going out to other events as opposed to being employed by a team and doing just one sport. Give us a little tick down of some of the different events you've done over the years.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll preface by saying I spent 7 years at the team level, and without doing that, there's no way that I would have the experience nor the credibility to be what we're doing now. So I should lead with that. That being said, over the past 5 years, when I left the Sonics, I left them to start a solo venture called Pat Walker Productions, which preceded 3 Point Productions. And PWP, as I called that by acronym, was really I saw a need for an industry for both event production and consulting for a lot of independent events, as well as teams that were struggling to do things right. So I started the PWP and ran that for 4 years, pretty successfully. And then last year, about this time last year, I was really hitting a bandwidth issue of it's tough to do this as a one-man gig by just contracting in different folks for the games and events. So I called up a couple of my old buddies that I used to work with in Sonics at the events and entertainment department. One guy, Todd Albright, who is the dot your I's and cross your T's, absolute left side of brain of the company, and in that he is just operationally sound across the board. This guy went up when the Sonics left for Oklahoma City, Todd went with them and basically set up their operational structure on an arena side from the ground up. That was a huge, huge asset to have for a company. On the flip side of that, Matt Hewer, who was worked with me at the Sonics, and then at that time we also owned the Seattle Storm, was the WNBA team. Matt, post Sonics, after they moved, went and created, was hired by the Storm and created the absolute top show in the WNBA, one that I would say you could put up against at least half to two-thirds of the NBA teams around the country, and it would be a competitive product. And so Matt is really, he's the idea generator. He's the guy who puts on the entertainment and comes up with the show concepts. And so I called those two guys. I said, hey, I'm running into a bandwidth issue. I'm not sure what's next, but what I'd like to do is the three of us partner up and create a new company. And all three of us were really excited about the concept. We founded 3 Point Productions and started January 1st of this year. We've had a pretty great year out of the gates. And I think it's due to a lot of our experience and our network. But some of the events we worked on, in fact, we just got back this past week, and I'm still fighting some jet lag from the Carrier Classic, which was out in Charleston, South Carolina. We essentially built a basketball arena, about 4,500 seats, on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. You probably saw it in the news. There was some issues with the court in the second game, some condensation. But it was a doubleheader. Women's game was first during the day. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. NBC Sports carried it. We were highly integrated with them from an in-arena and a TV standpoint. And after going home and watching that, it was one of the most entertaining TV broadcasts of a basketball game I've ever seen. Unfortunately, the men's game we got the intros live on TV. We did a color guard and anthem there, and it was an absolute goosebumps moment for me, seeing that and being part of that. And while the game didn't take place, the refs called it due to condensation after about a 40-minute delay. It was still one of the most unique events I've ever been a part of, and on a Veterans Day weekend was really special. Some other events we've been a part of this year, NBA All-Star. In fact, 5 years running now, I've been a part of that, directing. The highlight of directing All-Star was calling the Dallas Cowboys Stadium game a few years back, 2010. Guinness World Record crowd of 108,731, sitting at center court and really realizing, wow, first of all, I better do a good job or a lot of people are going to notice, but then just the awe and impact of that facility with the size of the scoreboard, with that many people. I mean, previous to that, I think the largest crowd I had directed in front of was probably 45,000. So it was quite impressive. And but also with the NBA, we're involved with a few events there this year. Their annual celebrity game, D-League All-Star game there. Those are the Friday, Saturday events, and then a pregame concert. They've actually done the last couple of years leading into the All-Star game. So those are a lot of fun. We also got out to Final Four this year, working with Turner Sports, who everybody knows TNT, TBS, the broadcast side of it, but Turner Sports also has a event production arm, and they put on Bracket Town, which is the fan fest for NCAA Final Four. And within Bracket Town, there's a center court. It's let's call it a 6,000-7,000 seat arena that they built in the convention center. And we put on the first annual the inaugural Legends game for them. So we brought back the Bobby Hurleys and the Tim Hardaways and the AC Greens of the world, and we had a game there. It was really, really neat, and I think that's likely an event they're going to continue moving forward. And we also got to put on for Final Four a tip-off tailgate event, which was right outside the Superdome in New Orleans. They had a huge concert stage that they use in New Orleans. People like to party. So this is a large concert stage with a huge plaza. And what we did was for both preceding the Saturday semifinals and the Monday final game, we put on a pep rally with each of the teams' bands, mascots, cheer squads, and then we had music bands that would come in and play throughout the day, along with one, we had the one shining moments, the montage that they do at the end of each Final Four. We had those playing throughout the day. So from the very beginning up until now, so I think you probably 20 or 30 versions of those. So it was a really, really unique and quite amazing experience to be in that shoot. That was 4 months after we started. So I mean, out of the gates, we were at NBA All-Star a couple months in Final Four. 4 months in. So that is a kind of an example of what we've done on the event production side on our larger scale. But we've also done some smaller scale events, a lot of here locally in Seattle. Jamal Crawford, who's from here, now plays for Los Angeles Clippers. He's done an annual charity game that we've produced last couple of years and been involved with. We actually last month, I guess this would have been last month. Again, I'm still fighting a little jet lag here, so be patient with me on that. But we put on the first ever Division I lacrosse NCAA lacrosse game in the state of Washington, which is, I think some of the East Coasters would say, oh, lacrosse is just getting there, but it's a growing sport out here. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the area, and to be able to welcome in a team like University of Maryland and University of Denver, who are both in the Elite Eight this year, and pack a venue of 5,000 people here and pouring down rain and putting an event on like that was pretty special. So whether it's 108,000 people in Dallas or 5,000 people at the inaugural lacrosse game, I think our dedication and motivation behind these events are consistent. Ultimately, we want attendees to have the best time that they possibly could have there. We want event sponsors to walk away and say, this was a great spend of my money with the event. I will absolutely do that again. And we want our client to walk away and say, wow, these guys just were able to take our event from here to here as far as organization and quality.
I'm curious. Now, you guys are a pretty small company when you look at, the three of you, and I don't know what the level of competition is out there, how many competing companies there are. But having said that, how do you make such connections with such big NBA teams and with some of those big events, and where's that come about?
Well, I'll answer answer all three of your questions there. One, it is the three of us. We started in January. We're growing fast. We just brought on our first intern, so we're pretty happy about that. And I wouldn't be surprised here in the next year or so if our staff starts to expand to include support. The second one being, how do we make those connections and really, it all boils down to networking. When we first started in this industry with the Sonics, we took opportunities, whether they were at conferences or that the league put on, or traveling around to see other shows in other cities. We constantly built that network, built it, and also in a quality manner. It wasn't just, we weren't just filling our LinkedIn profiles up. It was, we're learning. I recognize that a guy named Kip Helt down in Phoenix was one of the godfathers, if you will, of game ops. A guy like Jeff Wolschlager in Chicago, the godfather of the game ops world. I sought them out. I said, hey, I know I'm learning still. So can I pick your brain? Can we constantly? And so those are guys that I would call every month or two and in season, out of season, and just learn what they're doing, go and see some of their venues, see their show, bring some of those principles back to Seattle. And then, so we got a really good reputation in Seattle for putting on one of the best shows around. Another thing we did is we had the opportunity, which was a pretty unique setup with the Sonics, that generally you'd have a game ops department that would handle the show, and then you'd have an arena side of things that would put on, the logistics and set up press conferences and things like that. And then you would have a separate one that would be outside events, whether they were court appearances or, hospital visits, etc. Our department was really overseeing all three of those aspects. So while that was at the time very stressful and, it led to 60 to 80-hour weeks, in the end, it's an invaluable experience because now I can step away. And you asked earlier about competition. yes, there's competition in the sports event production world. Yes, there's competition in the sports consulting world. Uh, yes, there are folks like us, but I think the one area we stand out is one, our experience, two, that we're full time with this. Majority of other companies that are like this are generally more part time, and maybe they're working for a team, or they're regional based. So, say I know Las Vegas has one or two that do a ton of sporting events, but they just do Las Vegas events. I'd say about half of our business here is local in Seattle, and half is across the country or even internationally. So we've managed to, I guess, expand our bandwidth, not only on skill sets, but also reach as far as geographical. So I think that by doing that and by really focusing on our relationships, when I left the Sonics to go start Pat Walker Productions, I gave them 6 months notice. I stayed integrated in the hiring process for my replacement. I stayed on through the training process, and then I stepped away and was a consultant for the rest of the season. I think the reaction from them, along with other clients that then hired my company, would have been a lot different if I just said one day, "Hey, I'm out of here in 2 weeks. Good luck." So, by sticking around that 6 months and really seeing that transition through, I gained some credibility for that. I personally felt better about it because I felt like I was leaving things in better hands with people that I care about. And I spent that 6 months too starting to get a client book together, a client base together, and so as we fast forward now with 3 Point Productions and where we've been this year, you look at the NBA All-Star. Okay, that's a relationship I've had for probably 10 years. That's how we got that. Final Four, that came from a really good friend and strong contact at the New Orleans Hornets. They were approached about those events with Turner Sports, but couldn't produce them in-house. So they called up and said, "Hey, Pat, would you be interested in being referred to this?" And it took me like half a second to get yes out of my mouth. And so that was a strong referral for them. For an event like the Carrier Classic, that one, I reached out cold to them by email. I said, "Hey, I saw what you guys did last year, saw what you're doing, that you're planning to do things this year. Here's some background on our company. Let's talk if it makes sense." And a couple days later, they called back. We spent this is over the summer. We spent some time figuring out what exactly they needed, and then we were on board. So it's reputation, it's networking, but it's also finding and targeting new events that we are not networked to, and either going out cold or figuring out how we get to the right person via our network.
Okay, time for Pat Walker's best of.
Okay.
The best classic sports song for game ops.
"We Will Rock You," Gary Glitter. "We Will Rock You Part 2.
The best
excuse me, let me. I said that completely wrong. "We Will Rock You" is Queen. That's a great one. But "Rock and Roll Part 2," Gary Glitter. Those two. If I can have those two, I'll take them.
See, right away, you go for two on me. All right. Best halftime entertainment.
Can I be biased?
You can't pick people you know. Come on. Okay, go ahead.
The long-time one, honestly, one of my favorites all time is Red Panda. She's the unicyclist that flips the bowls up onto her head.
Okay.
But we've also, part of our company is talent management, and one of my favorite new acts that we brought on board is a guy named his name's JP Wilson. He does a magic show that is pretty amazing. If you just Google the magic of JP Wilson, and this kid is up and coming. He's pretty amazing.
Well, I remember years ago we brought in the High Impact Squad before.
I know those guys.
They were crazy. You put them in a high school gym, it's lights out.
Yeah, they're great dunkers.
Best mascot.
Squatch, Seattle Supersonics, and we're gonna get him back sometime soon.
Okay. We talk a little bit about what I always remember was the most fun is the contests during quarter breaks or in halftime, and the halftime acts. I'm going to ask you a couple questions about both those areas. What do you look for in a good halftime act. And let's throw the money out. We know no matter what we do, it's more expensive than we want to pay, but let's pretend there's not money involved. What do you look for in a good act?
One, I want somebody that I'm sure is going to keep people in their seats. You know, if a halftime act, when a halftime happens, one of two things happen. Everybody stays in their seats, or they get up and they leave immediately to the concourse. I want an act that I can tease in that late second quarter of a game, or late first half in college, and is going to be like, okay, I am staying in my seat. I'm going to get my pop and my hot dog after this is done. I also want ones that are creative and kind of innovative. I prefer a show that is fast-paced, high energy, and one that is going to have that wow factors. And what I say by that is I want to hear the crowd gasp with disbelief or amazement, whether it's a power move on a break dancer, a reveal on a magic show, or a high-flying dunk. I want at least a handful of wow moments during that show.
Okay, how about a show just didn't do it? You booked one and went, oh, maybe I should have thought differently.
This is just a personal thing. The contortionists kind of freak me out.
Oh, who was the first? The Lexus Brothers were one of the first groups that kind of did some stuff like that.
Yeah, and you know, some people love it, so I can't dog that. I mean, you're not going to please everybody.
Sure.
But the contortionists kind of creep me out a little bit. But I'd say the one halftime show that I think, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have even entertained the idea in the first place when it was brought to me, was a guy who had the Guinness World Record for hitting the most golf balls into a net over the course of like 3 minutes. It was pretty impressive, except when he winged one through a hole in his net, and it ended up hitting a fan, not badly, but, you know, bounced off something, hit him, and then they turned it into a very big deal with our guest relations staff. So that put, you know, a stronger risk filter on me immediately moving forward.
Do you ever go, Nat's got a great question, do you ever go out and hit on, you know, America's Got Talent or any of those TV reality shows to grab somebody off of there and get them before they're too big?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question. I appreciate it. Yeah, we do. There's a couple voices or a couple shows that I watch pretty regularly. America's Got Talent and The Voice are two in particular that I enjoy. I enjoy them from a production standpoint, but I also am looking constantly like, who is the next act coming along? And I think I look at it differently now. When I was working with a team, I would purely look at it from a booking standpoint. Now we've got a talent management umbrella under our company that we manage 4 halftime acts. It's a pretty good number for us right now in our current bandwidth, but constantly looking at, okay, is there a new act that makes sense to bring on? That's an area where, yeah, I've got my eyes out, and it's funny because I'll have friends both in the industry and outside of the industry that will call me up the next day and say, did you see that? No, I missed that episode. Okay, go back and YouTube clip this, guys, because I think they're a good fit for you. And so it's with reality TV in that aspect, the exposure for these acts are 10, probably 100,000 times what they used to be.
Yeah, it's we used to grab a hold of some NBA level ones a lot of times and try to multiple book them in our area, because with the budget we were dealing with, you know, grabbing a Myra Noodleman or the High Impact Squad or even Sandy Slade when, you know, she was doing the ball handling that was tough, so we'd share that.
Well, you bring up a good point there, because I think a lot of teams now, halftime shows used to be pay whatever you need to pay, just book the travel. It's just an incurred expense of a team. They don't think that way anymore. I'd say if you take an NBA season, out of 40, 41 home games, I'm guessing that probably about half, depending on the team, at least half of those will be slotted for group sales, youth basketball games, dance groups, etc. Another quarter of them may be for a sponsorship, fulfillment. So that leaves 10 dates on your calendar that you're booking acts with. You're no longer just saying, okay, I'll pay whatever. It's looking at it, okay, what am I going to get beyond the show? Are they going to do a fourth quarter encore for me? Are they going to do a halftime or a pregame autograph session? Are they, the breakdancers that come in, will they do a clinic beforehand that I can sell tickets for? So they're looking at it that way, but they're also looking at the travel costs. And so I think in fact, this is a project we had one of our interns do the other day, is we had a couple dates lined up for one of our performers in January, and they were back-to-backs, and we asked her to go out and go into Todd has created a pro sport, it's a sports team database that has every single major league, minor league, and college teams in one Excel form that he can then sort through and say, okay, I want to look at baseball in the state of Delaware, Massachusetts, and AAA. And by a couple clicks of the button, he'll immediately come up with who they are. So she used that database to then go out and find like 5 or 6 other teams in the area that around the ones that we already had booked. We called them up and said, hey, we got so-and-so coming in. Would you like to tag on the front or back end? Yeah, I'm in. So by now we have, instead of one team paying all the travel costs, you've got 3 or 4 teams splitting up the travel, which, rates are going to be constant, but the travel is the X factor there.
See, this was back in the early days when I was a single guy, and I would multiple book them to the point where our school ended up getting them free, and we spread the cost out among the others there. When you have the time, you can do that kind of stuff.
You're a smart man.
Give me an idea. Another question pops up. Give me an idea, either using your 4 acts or acts in general, where those price ranges do vary, and we know they generally require expenses, travel and housing and stuff like that, but what's the performance fee?
I think generally you're probably going to see prices range from, on the low end, probably $1,750-ish. On the high end, $4,000, $4,500. And that's usually going to depend on their experience, their profile, and demand. And then also how many performers. So that sometimes you might see an act that has 4 or 5 performers is going to cost you more than a solo act. But I think that the majority of groups that book talent, or that on the talent management side, are willing to at least have the budget discussion, because it's the first thing that comes up every time, especially for the collegiate level and the minor league level, but it comes up with the major league level too.
Those prices haven't changed a lot over the years, and I've got to believe it's because of something you referred to. With all the more exposure out there, now you have so many more acts to pick from. The acts have to get a little more competitive on rate, as well as all that ancillary things they provide, like you mentioned, the fourth quarter encore or the clinic, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an interesting point, because if you look at that, if I rewind to first getting into the industry, 12, 13, 14 years ago, those prices were pretty competitive. I don't know if you would have seen $4,500 at that point, but you would have seen $4,000. And look at inflation; that's actually making more $4,000 back then versus $45,000 now. So I think that I think you're absolutely right that acts realize that this isn't just an easy gig anymore, or an easy booking. We can't just roll out the calendar, expect it to be full out of the gates, and not have to do any work for it. So competitive pricing is a thing, and it's something that you've got to be very conscious of. And when we set the price for our acts, that's a sit-down conversation we have with them. We said, here's where we feel the appropriate rate for you is. They may have a different idea, lower or higher, and then we need to have that conversation before we actually sign them to come on our roster, and find a point at which we feel good about it, they feel good about it, and we're confident that the teams booking them will feel good about it.
So when you go, let's look at contests, whether it's a dizzy bat race or hot and cold or all the hot buns and Velcro, this and that. What do you look for a contest? What to you makes a good one?
I want a peak moment of it. So like when the win, I want a winning moment of that. I also, assuming it's sponsored, I want it to tie well to the sponsor. And that can be, with the use of puns. It can be used. I'll give you a perfect example of that. A contest for Starbucks. Instead of just doing a Starbucks shootout, name it and I've done this before. Name it the Starbucks triple shot, and you got to hit a layup, a free throw, and a three-pointer. And by doing that, you've created a name that is synonymous with the brand. So I think it's got to fit the brand. It also has to fit the marketplace. It has to fit the crowd that is watching it. There's some that work across the board, but a rodeo-themed contest is going to work much better in San Antonio, whereas a recycling contest might work very well in Portland or Seattle, and a very patriotic style contest might work well if you're doing a game for a military school. So I think you need to know who your audience are, both in the fan side as well as the sponsor side, to fit those two together. And I think there's got to be a crowning moment, either wow factor, like wow, that guy just hit a half court shot, or an absolute fall over in stitches humor moment, like a dance contest where you get the three contestants out there, they each do their own deal, and then one of them has just got crowd votes and one goes bananas, and the crowd goes off the hook for them. So and lastly, I think it's got to be important that whatever the association with it was, so say it's a sponsor brand, or say it's a team's community foundation, whatever that is that presents the contest, I think it's important to that the fan walk away and say, okay, I know exactly who that was. The Starbucks triple shot. It wasn't that contest where the guy hit 3 shots. So you need to it's got to be almost subconsciously ingrained in the fan's mind there.
But that sponsor also has to, or a corporate partner, if you will, has to have the commitment to build that over a period of time too. They can't be the one and done. You don't get that kind of relationship.
Exactly. I really like contests that you may see several times over the course of a season, and then they culminate with a championship bracket, something like that. Those ones I think are very successful because it's kind of like watching the playoffs, if you will, but from a fan experience standpoint.
We gave away $10,000 one year on a series of shots. Do you advocate or like using insured promotions? Or based on your other comments, my biggest concern is that there's so few winners that wow and that payoff doesn't happen a lot.
I am a proponent of insured promotions if they're realistic to win, like the 50-yard field goal for $1 million, where you're pretty sure the guy can't even get it 20 yards. Because a tough thing with insured promotions is you can't handpick your contestants. Normally, if we're going to have a shooting contest, I'm going to send the floor crew up into the stands to find people who know how they're playing basketball, or if it's a hockey shot promotion that have handled a stick before. With an insured promotion, you can't do that. So it's a risk you take. However, I also, one of my favorite promotions I've ever been a part of, it was presented by Miller Beer, MGD, and we did it during the playoffs, 8 years ago, and it was promoted as $1 million shot. But what that meant was the guy took a three-quarter court shot for $1 million, and he missed it. So instead of being over, what we then did is we removed a 0. He moved up to half court. He then got to take the half quarter for $100,000. If he missed that, he was going to move up to the three-point line and shoot it for $10,000, a free throw for $1,000, or a layup for $100. Chances are he was going to win at some point. This guy hit the half-court shot for $100,000, and the place went bananas. It was on the front page of the newspaper the next day. He was getting interviewed, and you better believe that Miller was pretty happy with the exposure that they got. And that was before the days that social media exploded. I could only imagine if that happened now and what the reaction would be. So I guess a long-winded answer, yes, I am in support of insured promotions, because I think the prizes that you can set up for those are really intriguing. From if he wins or she wins, it's great. But if you can do it in a way where there's at least a secondary or third or fourth chance to win with a reducing prize level, then I think that's set up for success.
Okay, last shot here. Obviously, you love what you do. Having said that, is there a dream job?
I'm living it.
No.
I mean, I mean,
Answer. I love it.
you know, and it's funny because you know, a lot of my friends and Todd's and Matt's friends, I mean, we get this constantly. Even based on the traction we get on our Facebook page, you know, and really we're not an organization that is your typical corporation and a typical page, but we're just sharing the cool things in back of house pictures and stuff that we get to do, and everybody says, "Man, you're living my dream job. You're living my dream job," and I hesitate to use the word job because I don't look at this as a job. When I was working for a team, that was a job, but this is an enterprise. I feel like we're building that. You know, over the next 10 years, I'm really excited about where we're going. I don't think Super Bowl is out of reach. I don't think, you know, the Tour de France is out of reach. I don't think anything is out of reach at this point for us. And so, yes, I feel like I'm living my dream career, but I'm also probably hardest on myself about what the expectations are for what this company will become over the, you know, in the future years.
That's great. Pat, I'm not sure if words alone can tell you how much we appreciate you pitch hitting like this at the last minute. Great stuff. If I can have my students watch this and get nothing out of it except your enthusiasm for what you do, then I don't care what they do for a living. Just have that same level. You're great. We hope we can hook up again sometime. And when they get you out in Utah to do an event, make sure you look me up.
Outstanding, Jeff. Can I give your students a couple quick pointers on the walkout? Two things that I often get, you know, how do I get into this industry and what do I need to do to stay there? First off, there's two types of people that want to get into this industry. One that are in it because they enjoy the production and the impact they're having on the fans, and they want to make a career out of it. And the second type is because they like the sexy side of the sports and they want to be around athletes and players and all that. If you're in the first category, absolutely pursue it. If you're in the second category, buy a ticket and figure out how to get VIP access. The other thing I'd say is from recommendation to students on really how to get into the industry, because it's a hard one. It is very hard. It's very it's not closed-minded, but you gotta have a referral in the door. So the way to do that is look for internship opportunities. Be prepared to make dirt money if you're making any on the front end, but grasp it, work as hard as you can, you will be noticed. Because if there's one mentality that's I think is in the sports industry, at least in the event production side of it, is a pay it forward mentality. I got my breaks at some point along because guys above me were willing to take me under their wing and show me the way and introduce me to the right people, and I'm more than willing to do that for the younger folks that are coming up now. And so take that approach with the internships. Look for the opportunities, but even more importantly, network. I talked about LinkedIn earlier. Reach out to folks. If you don't know them, don't just send them a blind LinkedIn network. You know, if somebody's watching this, for instance, and they want to reach out to me, I suggest don't just send me a LinkedIn notice that says so-and-so wants to add you to, because chances are I'm probably going to ignore it. However, if it was, hey, I watched the Hangout, I learned a lot, I'm really interested in, I'm based in Indiana, you know, I'm really looking for some advice, I'm going to accept it. I'm probably going to follow up with you and ask who I can introduce you to in that area. So networking in that manner, but also look for local, again, major, minor league, collegiate, high school level. Look for people that are in the field and just reach out to them and ask them for an informational interview. Take them out 15 minutes for coffee. That's how I got into this industry initially. When I was just out of school, I was wrapping up an internship with a billboard company owned by Barry Ackerley, who also owned the Sonics at the time. And through that internship, I had an opportunity to meet the director of marketing at the Sonics. He sat down with me for 2 hours, and I was able to pick his brain and learn his whole background. I didn't even know this department existed at the time. But now that, and then 2 years later after that, when Howard Schultz and the Starbucks and his group was buying the team, I emailed Brett, the director of marketing. I said, hey, I'm looking for a change. Is there anything open? He said, I remember you. Yes, sent me the job posting for a game ops assistant, and I ended up getting the job, and the rest is history. So even if it's not a job interview, take advantage of those informational interviews and really just learn as much as you can, especially on the front end, because it will pay off later, and that's how you're going to move up. And if anyone wants to know more about our company, 3 Point Productions, the website is 3pointproductions.com. It's 3ptproductions.com. Our Twitter handle's at 3ptproductions, and then if you here's the company, if you look at their 3 Point Productions, that's what we're on Facebook, and that's where we post a lot of our just fun stuff about not only the events we're doing, behind the scenes pictures, and we also do a lot of prize giveaways from I've got a couple Carrier Classics hats sitting on my desk that we're going to give away next month in our year end. So check us out, and again, if your students are watching this, I encourage them to reach out. Usually I'll end up getting 1 or 2 people. I'd love to hear from 10 or 20 of them, because I'll respond to every single one.
Hey, Pat, thanks so much. We appreciate your time. We've got David Eberhard from BYU Marketing in the Athletic Department coming up next, and he's our final episode. So we hope people who are watching this go back in the archives and watch some of our other guests as well. So thanks again, and have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
You take care.
All right. Take care.